Here we go, boys. Yeah, we're here now. Yeah.
Okay. Looks like we're live. Very cool.
Perfect.
I have to mute this audio because I'm hearing myself twice. There we go.
To stop the stream so I don't lag.
Okay, if we're done fixing all the technical problems, so welcome everyone in the chat to our little Ponies to Dawn panel at EuroPon. We're really happy to be the ones to kick off this con, and hope that you'll have enough fun to stick around for the following content as well. So we've got Dijit, Faulty, and myself, Bangpain, talking about some interesting behind-the-scenes stuff on Ponies to Dawn, and also our own experiences with pony music for a bit. So why don't you guys introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, no. All right. I'm Faulty. I run the YouTube channel for Ponies at Dawn, as well as help out with a lot of the adminning work with these boys, and judging and organising merch and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty much my role. I make terrible house music. That's about it.
Yes, terrible is a good way to describe it, I'm sure.
That's about right.
I'm Dijit. I think I'm the oldest person for Ponies at Dawn here by a couple of months, I think.
Yeah, he's like 47 years old.
Yeah, I am 47 years. I meant I've been in Ponies at Dawn the longest.
Right.
Team. So I am mostly here for judging and stuff like that during the albums, although I do help organize the album art. So normally I'm talking to the artists and stuff like that to get that ready. But aside from that, I don't really touch any of the social media stuff.
Yeah, and same as the others, I also contribute to judging music for the albums and doing whatever organization work is to be done at the time. I think I used to be responsible for the PRD SoundCloud as well, but unfortunately SoundCloud is a bit of a dead platform at this point. These days I feel like the thing I do most is like damage control on Twitter whenever someone is trying to cancel us. But,
oh dear.
You know.
True.
Okay, so the way that this panel is going to work is that we're going to talk a bit about our process of putting together a PRD album at the start. I think we are being fairly transparent about what it is that we do in general, so a lot of it probably isn't going to be news, but in the meantime, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, feel free to go ahead and drop those in the chat, and we'll note these down and talk about them as soon as we're done with the first segment. And then of course you can continue to ask more questions later on. So,
yep.
Okay, let's start off by maybe going over the basics. So the things that you're probably all familiar with is the fact that we are putting together about 2 compilation albums a year with 70 odd tracks that are provided to us generously by people from the pony music community. And the thing that on our end is probably the most work intensive part of that process is making sure that we find a good balance between the quality of the music that we host and still making sure to present a wide and diverse slice of what the fandom has to offer. So I think it's a good time to talk about some of the experiences that we had as people who both produce music in the fandom and are responsible for the track selection that goes onto these projects. If you two have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's definitely a hell of a time to go through. There's a lot of songs to go through, especially with the averaging, what have been like nearly 150 to 160 songs per album get submitted now, or something like that. It's a lot of music to go through, and yeah, we try to keep. We want to have at least 5 judges each album minimum. We try to have 6 or 7 if we can, but it depends on who's available to put that much work in at that point in time. So, but we definitely try and give everyone a fair score on the quality of music and a lot of the composition and stuff as well, like how the song flows and whether it's in song form. We get some submissions that are fairly early on and in their producing careers, and it's we try to give them some pointers and stuff on how they could help improve for their next submission or whatever, or just in general for when they're trying to grow as an artist. We try and leave feedback on every track to try and help them out as much as we can. And as we all go through all the tracks, it all gets averaged out. All the scores get averaged out, and we end up with a rough list of sort of what we'd be looking at to build up an album, and then we find a cutoff point as to where how much music is too much and where's the perfect amount. So these days we're averaging around 70 to 75 songs per album, so we usually look for a point around there to try and cap it at, and then work from there, going through and sorting songs.
Yeah, when it comes to kind of getting that cutoff point, there's a lot of discussion about whether or not how many songs we can realistically include, because a lot of the experience, at least for quite a few people who come to get the album, is they'll come to watch the live release for that, and it's pretty difficult to sit through like a 7-hour stream to listen to all of that music, like any more than 74, 75, 76 tracks, and suddenly that's like more than a day's worth of stuff that you've got to sit there and listen to if you want to be in that live experience, especially if you're one of the artists who's on the album and you've made something that's been put towards the end of the album. Some really quiet orchestral stuff normally gets put last to kind of put a bit of a lull as we kind of like come to the end of the album. And it would suck for that person if there was like 130 songs before them, which is like they have to actually wait a whole day, and anyone who was there for just the first couple of tracks is now gone during the live release as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've kind of run into repeatedly with, like, as a question that people had, is that we obviously only have like 5 to 7 people maybe judging every track in the get submitted to us, and there's as many genres pretty much as submissions usually in the list of things that we receive. And so some people might ask the question, how do we go on about looking at music that is wildly different from what we make ourselves, in terms of trying to come up with an objective score to assign that stuff. And that's a valid question, but I think it's very important to communicate that we're like very invested in really getting varied and fair like lineup for our albums, so we don't like go on judging things that differ from the kind of music that we make or the kind of music that we listen to in a way that is not in a way that isn't consistent with the genre rules, but instead we try to make sure that everything is like up to the industry standard of how that genre works, pretty much, to make sure that everything is fair and that we can include a wide selection of different things on our projects.
I think that our admin team actually has a pretty good kind of a very wide range of palettes in terms of the kind of music that we like to listen to. We might all make, or we might have quite a few admins who make a similar kind of music in general, but in terms of what we listen to, often when we come against a song that might be something that someone has never heard before, or might be in a genre that someone doesn't actively listen to, you can almost guarantee that there's normally at least one or maybe two admins who do actively listen to that kind of music and are able to kind of, if someone brings up a question and asks, hey, is this supposed to sound like this? Is this how it normally sounds? Is this kind of part of the song? I'm a bit confused. That person can then get their question answered like fairly quickly.
Yeah, and I think we also have like different discussions about things that we might not necessarily be sure about as the judge, to make sure that like we kind of reach an agreement across the board that we can all live with. So when there's like a strong disagreement, when someone says that this song is like almost perfect, and then another person says that they see glaring issues with it in particular places, then that's not just something that we sit on and let slide, but it's something that we go ahead and talk about and make sure that we understand each other's like point of view on why you feel a certain way and come to a conclusion that we're all happy with.
Yeah.
When we were kind of going through talking about judging stuff, a lot there's also like a good kind of focus for us, at least, on not just music that is technically correct or like matches a like a certain style, but there's a lot of like personal enjoyment of music that kind of goes into understanding songs as well. Like a song doesn't need to be technically completely like perfect to be enjoyed by a person or many people, or to be like very accessible to people, which is definitely part of it. And we try our best to be super objective when it comes to songs, but there have been points where admins have kind of been like, yes, I know that part of this song doesn't sound that great, but I really like this song, and kind of maybe do some feedback with the person who made the song to try and fix any of those those possibly technical mistakes, like mixing problems or something like that, to try and like help that person improve on something that might not be something that they know how to improve on their own, or something like that in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Okay, just one quick technical note, just so you know. So if you're watching this and you want to chat with other people who are watching, then please try to use the EuroPon chat. I have unlocked my own because there has been a few messages about that, but ideally we want to have like all the questions in one place so we can actually see what's happening, and we don't have to monitor like 3 or 4 chats at the same time. So yeah, if you're watching and you want to talk to us, please go use the EuroPon Twitch chat.
Yeah, thanks. I think another kind of important part when it comes to working on these albums, when we're past the point of selecting the songs, comes down to structure of the album. I think that's fairly important, in the way that we kind of like try to, at least I think that the way that we've been doing it is we try to construct a bit of a flow between songs. We don't want very jarring sudden changes in tone or style as we kind of like move between song placements in the general positioning of the album and the structure of the album as well.
Yeah, which can be like a more difficult thing to figure out than it might seem, because like it's 70 tracks. So there's a lot of variation between those. So what really helps is the fact that we have many people submitting who basically do like genre fusion music. So it's very handy to use these tracks in particular to guide between 2 different sections of maybe like orchestral or electronic music, and to generate a smooth transition between those segments, we can use a track that maybe incorporates elements of both of those genres, which just helps the album flow better and make a better experience for someone who's listening to the whole thing in one go, which we generally kind of consider to be quite important, even if perhaps it's not really the way that most people listen to music to these days.
Yeah. Portion 11 says, haven't heard many brony stoner / sludge metal yet. Well, we only really, we don't go out hunting for any particular sort of genre, so it's only whatever gets submitted to us. So if you want to hear that from, some of the metal artists in the fandom, you better go ask them to make a song and submit it. So yeah, it's the genres, we don't really pick by genre. We sort of album sort of consists of whatever genres pop up during submissions as it is. So
yeah, exactly. Like I've heard this take kind of frequently that Ponies in general favors like EDM music over other things, and that's not really something that we have a lot of control over, because it just so happens that making music on a laptop is just about the most accessible way to do it, and obviously the thing that people do the most of, and because we have a general quality threshold and don't discriminate by genre, we end up having a lot of electronic music on the album as well, which I think is, the fairest way to handle this, all things considered. But, if you want to submit unconventional genres or unconventional music, then feel free. Like, we have absolutely no bias against these things. It's just that not a lot of people do them. That's all.
Yeah, if you do submit something, you can be guaranteed that every single judge working on that album is going to listen to it. We don't skip songs. We don't skip tracks that are submitted based on genre or the person who's submitting them or anything like that. They'll all get a listen. We'll all give them scores and feedback if we have time. Sometimes admins don't have time to submit feedback, but you'll at least get feedback from at least one admin, if not more. So you don't need to feel like you're going to be ignored if you submit.
Yeah.
Even if maybe you think that your music isn't quite there yet to make a submission or make it on the album, feel free to do it anyway, because there's no harm in it, and you might get some valuable comments that will help you improve. And it's good to have your foot in the door. Pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got a question from Pon TW3, who's asking about our opinions. Yeah, it's 12. All right, I didn't know that. Who's asking our opinions about how we feel about Ignite, and that a lot of people have said that it's probably the best Ponies Adorn album, and they agree.
Well, I mean, every album seems to be the new best album, because a lot of the people that's submitting have been improving more and more, especially some of the latest artists that have come out of nowhere. From when we've heard of them last year, starting producing to where they are now, it's pretty insane hearing the way that people are progressing with their quality of production and their skill levels when it comes to actually making the structure of the songs and stuff themselves. So of course everyone every year is improving themselves, so every album is feels like it tops the last one, but I'm sure to a lot of people that everyone has their own album they like the most because it it means the most to them or was nostalgic for a particular reason or whatever. So yeah, I mean, I think Ignite was pretty amazing, but hopefully there's more amazing ones to come.
Yeah, a lot of it always constantly feels like we're making the albums better somehow, but it actually is just entirely based on the general skill of the people who submit to the album, and the kind of quality is as we get further and further into technology progressing, music that consumer access to software and stuff like that gets easier. People can now buy better synths. People can now access resources to learn to make this music a lot easier through things like YouTube or any other skill teaching website. And so like a lot of these people are now getting really, really good, and the general bar of quality is going up and up and up. And previously, we kind of just increased the number of songs we were allowing onto the album, but we're kind of at like a top point for that. So the quality keeps going up, but we can't really let any more tracks onto each album without ending up in like a huge, with like a 12-hour thing like I was talking about before.
Yeah, and I think Ignite specifically it was kind of a special album in that sense, because I've noticed that a lot of people who were, fairly new to the community, who just maybe started out producing in like 2017, 2018, and have been consistently submitting material to our albums up to that point, and, they haven't really quite reached the bar, actually made the jump on Ignite. And I think in a lot of ways that's kind of emblematic for how our community works, where, we just support other musicians who are starting out, and you give feedback, and you build communities that are kind of self-sustaining and grow together in terms of their skill and, their connections, until, the stuff that they can come up with is genuinely so good to compete with people who have been there for a much longer time. And I'm really happy about how the structures that we've set up like work pretty much as intended.
There's a lot of that. There's a lot of growth based around like the community aspect of the thing. Is like if you're active in the Discord, you're posting links to your tracks and getting constant feedback and stuff like that. When you're submitting to the album, you're getting feedback, you're getting to hear. Sometimes you even get like real-time feedback where a judge will want to tell you personally, I think that if you improved this and changed this, the song could be really good. Your song could get even better than it already is. It's like a big part of getting past that first hump you kind of get when you first start making music, or when you're kind of intermediate at music. You've got to push over a pretty big hill of like getting structure right, and getting sound design right, and getting general like feel of music and stuff like that. You need to learn all of these things at the same time, which can be pretty hard without constant feedback and like actually getting your ideas out to someone. And by providing a community kind of platform to be able to do that, I think at least it's really helpful towards artists improving, especially ones who might just be starting out.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've got
what
a
else
few
we got?
questions, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so Butterflied asks, if Ponies are Dawn has a 4-point system, and 4 points is the highest the song can get, how exactly does that work? Does a song need to get a perfect 4 to get on the album?
Yeah, so going back to how we sort of end up with a list of songs, and we try and average out around the 70-odd songs mark, or whatever works out to around 6 hours. The cutoff kind of ends up being, so our scores can be anywhere from 3.95 to 2.75 or whatever in between 1 and 4. And what will happen is, in that list, as we go down to around the 6 hour mark, or the 75 song hour mark, we sort of see the average score of which, I think the last few albums have been like a 3.6 or a 3.7. And that's kind of where the cutoff point. So that sort of changes for every album. The 4-point system really only just gives us as the judges, when we're organizing stuff, a bit of an idea of what songs are at what level throughout the thing. Just a way to keep track, pretty much. So yeah.
Yeah, like the 4 points are like a relative scale, right? So there's no like criteria lists that we have for the song has to fit in order to be a certain score or anything. It's just something that evolves the same way that the albums evolve. So maybe something that would have received 4 points back in the Celestial Plains era is perhaps more of a 3.25 nowadays. There's no like set system here or anything. It's just how we feel about it, and something that helps us organize the tracks in a ranking that makes sense to us.
Exactly, yeah. And Iggy just asked, why is it 4 points, not 5? Well, I mean, it could be 10 points, it could be 100 points. It makes no difference. It's just it's just a scale for us to work out where we're at. And I don't know, 4 points must have been where it started from back in the day.
Yeah, there must have been some kind of explanation. At times, I kind of think that, like, 4 means it's absolutely perfect. 3 means that it's like it's quality, but there needs to be some work. 2 means that it's not ready for album release at all, but is getting there. And 1 is generally left for tracks that are either submitted by people who've never listened to music before, which does happen sometimes, or they don't really seem to fit the album environment, or there are so many problems with the song that you just can't listen to it properly.
For songs that have already been released, when people are like, they don't understand that this album, like, we're not a music label. A lot of people seem to think we're a music label, and they just submit songs to be reposted. So they've already released it, and that's not what we need. The criteria is it's not supposed to be released because it comes out all together with everyone. And we also come across a few, stolen tracks every now and then too. So we definitely give those the 1 so they don't end up on the album. So,
yeah, true.
Yeah, 1 doesn't really mean give up at music. It just means it's got so many problems that it probably shouldn't be considered for the album at all. There's been artists who have submitted 1s in their first submission, and then as they submit more and more music, they go up in ranking, or not ranking, they go up in scores with each consecutive submission until eventually, they might be pulling 3.5s, 4s. They might get really good. That just happens sometimes. You never really give up.
In the last couple of years, there's been a lot of great new artists coming up real quick. So, yeah. 1s are generally people that have just started in the last 2 weeks, right before an album or something like that. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what else did we get here?
Okay. I'm seeing someone say that you don't really listen to P&D because it's 90% EDM, and I'm pretty sure that is factually incorrect. I'm pretty sure that we have more than 10% other genres.
Yeah, I think it works out 40% EDM tops, I think, and then every other genre jammed afterwards. So there's a ton of variety of music in there.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe 60% or something, I'd say, but there's definitely a lot of band music, a lot of orchestral, a lot of chill out tracks that don't kind of go beyond
really
the boundaries
feel like
EDM, of electronic dance music. So obviously there's a big part of EDM for the reasons that we already discussed previously, primary one being accessibility, of course, but there's also a lot of other stuff too. So I would say that if you're interested in that, give the albums a try. Skip the EDM tracks if you don't like them, but there's plenty of pony music out there that is also rock or metal or jazz or orchestral or anything that you might want. So definitely still give the albums a try.
Yeah, don't forget that the albums are also under a pay what you want model. So if you don't have the spare money or you don't want to pay for it, you can still get the album and listen to it for free. And then who knows, you might find some artists you really like and you can go and follow them. You might find out that you really enjoy the album. Who knows?
Yeah.
Reveal your faces.
Yeah, our faces are on the screen, man.
Yeah, you can see us right there. It's actually a live camera. My mouth doesn't move when I talk.
Yeah, no, neither does mine. Mine's stuck. Australian internet.
Mine is just open. I just move my tongue. That's all.
Oh, nice. Yeah, someone said, "Do you plan on a genre-specific album?" And no, we don't. We always have multi-genre albums, so it's for every artist.
I think the closest we've gotten to kind of forcing a theme is when we did our collaboration albums, which is just the requirement was that if you wanted to release on the album, you needed to work with another musician on a song. So Amity, I think, was at the last one we did like that.
Yeah, that was Amity. Yep. Yeah.
We also had a question from Yin Young DP1 who asked, what would you say is a music genre that needs more brony artists?
I don't know. There's quite a lot of artists making quite a lot of genres at the moment.
Yeah, I think
I'm going to say
it's hard to...
that we need more Pony Midwest emo.
That'd be pretty good, actually.
Like, unironically, I've been really into that recently. I would love to hear it. It's just like not a lot of people do this these days, even like outside of horse music.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of stuff that's kind of fallen out of popularity recently, but was really popular, 10, 15, 20 years ago, definitely needs a bit more like kind of interaction from the Brony community. I feel like a lot of Brony artists like to move with what's popular, which is fair enough. Normally the reason it's popular is because it's good and they like it. But there are some artists that I feel like could really kind of nail those slightly older sounding vibes without losing any of the kind of thing that makes them them. So I don't know. That's just how I feel there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
and more drum funk as well, of course. But like no one is going to do that because there's like a total of 3 people on the entire planet who actually like to listen to an Alan Drake loop for 15 minutes.
One of them
I'm
hates
one
it,
of
the
them.
other one
I'm one
don't.
of them.
Yeah. I suppose we should talk about like the album that's coming out soon. Well, yeah,
The one we just announced.
open submissions. Yeah, that one. We should probably talk about that.
At least a little bit.
At least a little bit. So we have a new album coming out. It's called Eclipse. It's currently open for submissions at the moment. So if anyone wants to make a song for it, you've got a couple months to make it and submit it. I don't remember what the deadline is, but that's okay. Yeah, it's a couple of months away.
In September, I think. Yeah.
Okay, September. Yeah, early September. If you want to join in, be sure to submit something. That's about all the info we have for you so far, but just thought I'd better shout that out so everyone knew.
Yeah. I think you guys should be able to use any and all of your free time to make music if you want to and try and submit.
Yeah, exactly. There's still plenty of time left for you to maybe even hook up with other people to work on music together if you want to. And, you can see our socials on screen. You'll find the submission forms on the Twitter, probably other places as well. If you're on a Discord, then... Yep.
Yeah. There you go. What else have we got for questions laying around here?
But by Midwest, I don't mean Oriental, by the way. The Midwest is like the American Midwest.
Yeah.
They are different. It's a very different sound. What would Oriental emo sound like?
It'd be an interesting one.
I'm very curious at this point.
Yeah, so SE1909 in the Discord chat asked a while ago, are you being approached by a lot of small creators or rather than a lot of big musicians? We have a bit of a mix, actually. We have some quite big musicians in the fandom that submit with us and a lot of smaller guys as well. We have PrinceWhateverer, of course. He throws in a submission every now and then.
Shout out Prince.
Who's that?
Shout out to Prince. We've got Scratton. He was one of the big names in Pony for years. He's doing really well still. Christ, I don't know. There's many. Jick Rowe. Oh, I can't think of them all. There's lots of people. But yeah, we've lots of big artists, and then we've got lots of great small artists that are up and coming as well. So, yeah, kind of everyone.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts is that kind of like they're not really kind of separate. They're all this part of the same album, part of the same kind of like theming and stuff like that, which I think works really well for kind of showcasing exactly how talented some of these smaller artists might be, those who definitely deserve more attention than they've been given.
It's like a great opportunity for cross-promotion as well, basically, by having a lot of big artists on the album, like folks like Jikro or Prince, who have like tens of thousands of YouTube subscribers. If they post Ponies to Dawn on their channel, like it's going to create some sort of traffic towards smaller artists as well. So it's basically by participating, everyone helps each other create a collective audience that exists for pony music, as a whole, rather than singular artists, which unfortunately, in recent years, as kind of community platforms have somewhat lessened, we've seen more and more. Like, there's plenty of people who aren't really even aware that there's pony music happening in 2020. Not sure how that works, because I think we're very public about it. But the bigger platform we can build for people to find and for people to enjoy pony music as a whole, the better.
Yeah. Leafy was not here, asked in Discord. I think you all need to release your albums on Tidal along with Spotify and Apple Music. Well, we do release them on Spotify and Apple Music, and we're probably not going to release on Tidal because it's going to cost us more than the two people that would actually listen to it on Tidal.
Listen, Kanye's got to hear our new tracks. Kanye's got to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think Tidal's quite on our on our list of things to be submitting onto, but we definitely have it on Spotify and Apple Music. So, yeah.
I have any more?
12 asked in Discord how we feel about upcoming pony labels / compilations and stuff like that, especially those that focus on a particular genre, such as lo-fi and stuff like that.
I think they're great. More albums, more compilation albums there are, the better, and the fandom more music, more better, I say.
Exactly.
It's cool to have more places for everyone to submit their creativity. I mean, we only release, what do we release, like 4 albums a year total? So 3 albums and a charity album.
It's normally 2 and a charity, yeah.
And a album.
So, and a album. Yeah, so like, there's big gaps in between our albums, so it's great to have other communities in there as well, like a State of Sugar and places like that, to be able to fill in the gaps as well and have people submit in between and keep the music pumping out. So I think it's great having more albums.
Yeah, and
I do think
you
finished. Sorry, there's a bit of a lag because the call's in Europe.
Well, okay, so what I was going to say is that I think it's great to have communities for specific genres as well. Like, if people want to focus on getting better at making dubstep or anything, then they can go to NSN and talk to people who are in the same genre niche and work on that specifically. And there's nothing wrong with that from our perspective. We encourage it completely to for people to build like their own communities within pony music, and because ultimately it's all there to help each other and lift the overall quality of the content that pony musicians as a whole can create. And yeah, I think that's very cool.
Yeah,
there you go.
I've totally forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, so someone in the chat asked, do you think a pony house will ever become mainstream? Well, we have had a few that have done that. Quite a few, actually, throughout the fandom, but one I can think specifically that's been on Ponies at Dawn was Fowler, who released with us, and then not a couple months later ended up on Monster Cat, and now they're a huge, their home is Monster Cat, basically, and they're always pumping out new tunes. And then we got... the Living Tombstone, the other Brony.
Yeah, I was gonna say
if you haven't heard of them, then
who's mainstream, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you got
plenty of like older musicians who used to be around like the 2010, 2012 sort of era that have sort of moved on to make more, not perhaps mainstream projects, but like projects that are popular in the music world as a whole. Like some
you got Black Griffin out there doing some big things on YouTube now. I know John Kenza, he had a bunch of he had a couple of really big songs on NCS at one point, and there's quite a few artists that are out and about that are doing some pretty big things. So yeah.
LM too, if you want a recent example.
Yes, of course, yeah. Brony musician turned Monster Cat. There's been a couple of those, actually.
Was he Monster Cat? I thought he
no,
went in like Firepower or something like that, or Disciple.
no. They were talking about Fowler, but there's also Laszlo. As far as I know, I can't remember their old artist name.
Yeah,
They
Laszlo
were
was.
Laszlo,
Well,
and then
So
there was that one time that Archie got on Monster Cat, and then they took it down, and that was fun times. So yeah, there's been a few.
it just kind of goes to show that a lot of the pony artists don't really need to be afraid of not being able to go mainstream just because they've made pony music. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to be ashamed of the stuff that you like to make, guys. Make whatever the heck you want to.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. El Spongy. That's who Laszlo was. Yes,
yeah,
you're right.
Correct.
That rings the bell. So yeah, there you go. What about Nightcore, Pete? No Nightcore, thank you. Cheers anyway, bro. We encourage new, like music that is your own and unique, not just speeding up someone else's.
Slowing down someone else's songs is not unique music either. Sorry.
Yeah,
No,
vaporwave. the vaporwave that people like is often where they've done a bit more than just slow down another song.
Yeah.
Good vaporwave is not just slowing down someone else's song and then throwing some lo-fi drums you found online
and
on
a vinyl
exactly.
thinking that you're cool. Yeah.
Synthwave, on the other hand, yes, we've had some great synthwave. More synthwave
That is true.
as well. I still love Sleepless by Love Struck, Bernie. That's a banger.
Good vibes.
Yeah. There you go. You're just learning how to work as a freelancer in music. I feel like I'm swimming against the waves. Any advice? Yes, there's a lot of people out there, but if you're unique and find your own little niche in the music world with your own followers, you'll find a nice way to keep going. And certainly by like being in like servers and stuff like the Ponies are doing server and Status Sugar and all that sort of stuff, being with other people that make music, they can give you tips and stuff on how to help make get further with your music and help promote it and that sort of stuff. So yeah.
I don't think anyone here
connect with the community.
Okay, sorry, I think you're
right.
cut off for a second there, so I thought you were done talking, but guess not.
My bad.
So the thing I was going to say, like, I don't think any one of us is like necessarily like a professional musician, because we're all doing other stuff for a living. But I'm not sure if we can really give meaningful advice on how to do that. Like, if you want to genuinely earn your money as a freelancer in the music world, there's probably better places to go than ask us. But yeah, I think a good place to start is certainly, relying on the resources that exist in our little fandom community for improving as a musician, because there's definitely a lot of them, and a lot of people you can talk to for advice and feedback and general support on whatever platforms. And I think that's not the worst place to start, because people have already used, proven in the past that you can use that to grow your brand pretty substantially. And, if whatever you're doing is appealing to people, then you can still do that.
Yeah, I think some of the best learning and kind of growing as a musician, for me at least, came from working with other musicians, for sure. Like, even if I wasn't making a song with someone else, if you're just like sitting in a call with someone and you're just sending whips back and forth and stuff like that, there's a lot of kind of raw kind of like information that you can get out of another person, especially if you consider them to be someone that you kind of you might look up to, or someone who makes the kind of music you want to make. It can really help to just be bouncing ideas off someone, listening to what they have to say, learning those tiny little tricks that they can teach you to just, maybe you don't understand how a compressor works and that person can just tell you in like 3 seconds. Little things like that come fastest when you're working with someone that you like. At least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I agree.
For another question, we have Final Sight asks, how do you decide on what image to use for the YouTube thumbnails? We generally, so that's between Exploding Pony Toast and I. we tend to listen to the song. Like we generally have an idea on each song what the theme is based on. So a lot of the songs on the albums are based around a specific set of characters or a particular character and like a particular theme that they're set in. So we try to find, say if it's a song about Luna, back when she was, fighting or just been reformed or whatever, she was trying to find we'd try and find a sad Luna picture or something that matched that theme. Or if we got some, some real saucy, funky, Hearst Percy tracks, then you got to go for the clickbait. People hate it, but the numbers don't lie.
Some people like
some people hate it. There's a couple people that hate it, but going by the numbers on YouTube, a lot of people like it. So, yeah, no, it's we definitely just try and find art that fits the track the best. We just try and match the vibe, I suppose, bro. Gotta get that vibe right.
Yeah, there's been a few instances where we actually opted for like a less clickbaity image, just because that was the one thing that fit the vibe of the track best.
Exactly.
And, that's not always the best decision from a marketing perspective, but it is the most creatively honest one, and sometimes you need a little bit of that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is some of the songs we really do love having like the exactly perfect picture for it, even though that's not, what'll bring the views. YouTube tends to really dislike having like a darker thumbnail, so you get some of those real sort of darker and really detailed images are not great either. You need something that's like really big and in your face with lots of bright colors. That's what seems to grab the attention the most. But sometimes, songs just don't suit that. You just want to have the really nice, detailed, like amazing landscape pictures and stuff. And the track might not do as well for it, but it definitely complements the track for the people who do watch the videos and enjoy it. So, yeah.
We've got a question from Puffy in the chat with the what is something you would say to yourself when you were starting out making music?
So I assume that means like advice that you might give to yourself when you were younger or something like that.
Yeah, that's how I read it as well.
I think, at least for me, that I needed to kind of get over myself and stop caring about making a perfect track and start just making more than one. Work on 100 different songs and work with 100 different people instead of trying to make myself perfect before I start trying to make music with other people or start putting my songs out there and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know, I kept finding a sound that I liked and was like, I want to achieve that sort of level of quality, and I just kept pushing myself to do it. And if I was starting to give up on projects, which happened very, very often, I just go out and listen to a few other artists and some of their older songs from when they started, and you go, oh, well, I mean, back when they were starting out, they were having all the same issues I was, and it's just it builds your confidence again to think that some of the massive big artists out there, they're the same as us. They started out from, making some really dodgy MIDI synths in FL with some really bad drums, and you just go, oh well, at least where I am at now is better than where I was, 2 months ago. At least I'm making something coherent now that people might actually listen to. So you just sometimes you got to look back at past stuff to realize that you've come further forward to keep the motivation going.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think I've had another thing that might be perhaps a bit specific to my situation, but like the time when I was really starting out making music seriously and starting to invest a bit more time in learning FL Studio and that sort of thing was in the year that I started finishing up high school, which was pretty much the last year of my life when I had like tons of free time. And if you're younger or around that age, you might want to consider thinking that like use the opportunities that you have and think about really, putting in the work, if you want to, if this is something that you want to do, don't necessarily delay getting deep into the production learning until later, because you don't really know what your life situation is going to be down the line. And instead, make the best of the time that you have. And there's definitely enough resources out there these days that you can get better with just watching YouTube tutorials and talking to other people and that sort of thing. So it's very accessible. So basically my advice would be, if music production is something that excites you, then go for it whenever you want. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Got another question here. Do you think there could ever be a mainstream pony label? Well, we're trying our damnedest.
If we were
the way the YouTube, well, I mean, we kind of are. With the way the YouTube channel is going, we might get, semi-mainstream. I very much doubt it, but it's nice to dream.
I think that there's a lot of stigmatism around ponies, due to the older days of the internet and things being labeled as cringe and whatever, that kind of hurts the image that a lot of possible or potential mainstream artists might have going for this kind of thing, which is why I think it would be very difficult to take a perfectly branded My Little Pony label and make it mainstream. You could definitely include some references, but also you'd run into legal problems too, because as things get bigger, you've also got to make sure that you're not using anything that might get you in trouble. And some of these bigger pony labels have a lot of references to the show, or they have a lot of stuff that could get them in legal trouble as well.
Yeah, and
so I think that impacts it.
I think that the closest thing you can really compare it to is how popular doing things that are sort of associated with the anime aesthetic in mainstream EDM is these days, which has grown significantly over the last couple of years. It wasn't really around all that much back in the 2010s, in the early 2010s, but it's super popular at this point. And maybe perhaps if the climate of the internet had been the same back when the pony fandom was huge, you could have really try and establish a more mainstream presence of ponies. But I think we might be a little bit too far past the peak of Friendship is Magic popularity to really attempt that anymore at this point, which is fine. It's okay to exist in a more slim consolidated fandom community. There's nothing really wrong with it. It's just, the way that things are.
Yeah.
Iggy asks, have any of us ever sent a demo to a mainstream label before?
Only a real small one, for me anyway. It's just a channel called Thrilling Music. They just it's just a channel full of my style progressive house, and I love it. So we'll see. I only just a bit of that yesterday, so we'll see whether they want that or not. But other than that, no, I haven't really tried much outside of Ponies at Dawn. So what about you guys?
I mean, I've personally sent music to a few smaller drum and bass pages over the years. Some of which I can admit to be a mistake in retrospect, because it the quality wasn't there, and I was just testing the waters at the time, which is something that's fine. You can do that. No harm. But yeah, I wouldn't really call any of that mainstream necessarily, because the music that I make probably wouldn't fit a lot of the huge popular labels anyway. Definitely something to perhaps try again in the future, though.
Yeah, I mean, the last time I properly tried was years ago, and I think that my quality has improved, exponentially since then. I am actually on a couple of those anime promo channels that just kind of release a song along with a visualizer and some scantily clad anime girl, which is, it's cool. They get lots of views. They have some good interaction. I don't really see any increase in numbers on my end, but that doesn't matter. I'm more about just getting people to listen to my music. I don't really care whether or not they come back for more. Well, I do care, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, the click-through rate on those promo channels is pretty abysmal. Like, it's cool for your one track, but I think a lot of people have a misconception about how, getting a song on like Suicide Sheep or something is a big breakthrough. But if you actually look at a lot of the artist profiles of people who do have their music posted there, like, they're not much bigger than maybe 1,000 followers on SoundCloud or something like that.
Yeah,
it's a bit sad, honestly, but yeah.
It kind of hurts because I guess it might be something that artists do more often, but I really like to go and if I find a song that I like, I'll go and listen to that artist's whole discography. I won't just listen to one song on a promo channel, but I don't know if a lot of people like to do that in comparison to just, putting on a promo channel, letting it random some tracks and then doing the rest of their stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the niche that promo channels fill a lot of the time. Like, there's a reason, I guess, for why they have, genre-specific playlists and that sort of thing for people to just play back music that is similar without necessarily like paying a huge amount of attention to who made it, which is fine. Like, if that's how people want to listen to it. But yeah, actually growing your own personal brand and growing your own personal platform that is going to ensure that people listen to your music specifically is like an incredibly difficult process. And you can't always rely on existing promo pages to help you with that because they're concerned with doing their own thing primarily.
Yeah.
There you go. We got any other questions, guys? We are getting closer to the end here, but
yeah, we're going to be wrapping this up in about 10 minutes, I guess.
Yeah. So any more questions, you go for it. Anything you feel like it doesn't have to be specifically music related. If there's something you want to ask specific to one of us or whatever, that's cool. Go for it.
Do we have anything else on the agenda that we forgot to talk about?
Not a lot I can think of.
What's the best scale?
I was going to say C major. Come on, who doesn't love a bit of C major? Literally, like 90% of the world.
I bought a keyboard that only has white keys.
Hey, I don't use C major that often. I tried to change it up. Best pony, Rainbow Dash, of course. Next question.
I do not endorse that statement.
I
think you should.
I feel like it's very subjective. Objectively, the best pony is Twilight Sparkle, but you're allowed to think incorrectly if you want to think of another pony as being best.
No one thinks is incorrect. Does.
I don't think that is that's the thing that you should be saying like out in the internet.
Yeah, that's very mean.
I'm feeling a bit cyberbullied right now, but
yeah, we will be contacting Ponies at Shah.
Oh no! Here we go.
You will be before
with them. Favorite genres to listen to? House, electro swing, anything electro is great. Yeah, house music, great. Anything house is just the best. I like a lot of trance actually too. And actually, surprisingly, I love a lot of orchestral music, just mixed in out of nowhere. Yeah. Anyway, what about you guys? What's your favorite genres?
I would have to list like 50 things to necessarily give you like a comprehensive idea. Sure. But like something like stuff I've been listening to a lot recently is just weird electronic music like Echo or Frequent, that sort of thing. And beyond that, a bunch of math rock, Midwest, a little bit of ABM. I don't know. A lot of different music, really.
I've been on a bit of like a sad boy kick, listening to a lot of Joji like artists and stuff like that. I don't know what it is, but just that kind of like chilled back, low quality instrumental with some dude crying about everything in his life over it. It's just on me right now.
Interesting.
Who does what in P&D? We already talked about that. You guess you
Earlier, yeah, okay. We kind of do a bit of everything.
We're all just a smaller part of Alex, and when we do our super combiner move, we all become him, and then we post on the Twitter.
Yeah,
and then
we combine to become the Megazord or whatever it is.
What's the song you wish you could improve or redo the most? I would pick any Bank Pain song, and I would just fill it with swords. He loves them so much. Just as many super swords as I could fit in there.
Yeah, to be honest, needs swords.
Just replace every patch with a super saw.
Yeah, pretty much. And like at least like 90%, reverb of Valhalla Room on every channel. Maybe 2 just to be safe. Yeah.
And I would hard pan it all to the left. On the mark.
And then to have a single square lead on the right.
I don't know. I don't think I would redo any of my own songs. I think that no matter if it's bad or good, it's a product of its time and the person I was, and I'd leave it there. I do like VIP.
I'm always looking at my old songs and being like, "Oh, I should remaster that. This is terrible."
I mean, I've just recently done a VIP of a track that I'm not going to talk about because it's a big secret, but I think there's like some value to sometimes revisiting material that you've done in the past that you feel like you couldn't entirely realize like into the thing that you wanted it to be at the time. And if you feel like revisiting it, then go for it. But I would never really pressure anyone into doing that because, as Dijit said, it's a product of its time. And
I think I misinterpreted what redo meant. Like, I think VIPs are fine and they're cool because it's taking an older idea and redoing it. But I thought like it meant like if I could go back in time and just remake one song and release it as the remade version instead of whatever it is now, Which
right,
for VIPs, like that makes sense because it's kind of just a new take on an old idea rather than replacing the old idea, which is what I thought the question was, which is dumb.
Yeah, the old track is obviously still there if you make a VIP for people who don't listen to that. Which is, well, like from an artist perspective, it's sometimes a bit like incomprehensible because you see how much you have subjectively improved something. And it's weird that someone will like go ahead and say that they like the old thing better, but as a listener, I sort of relate to that when I think about the kind of music that I listen to myself.
Yeah,
who is the most known pony outside the fandom? Rainbow Dash. She's the marketing for the whole show and has been in like every season.
Yeah, basically that or Pinkie Pie because everyone remembers the pink one.
That's true. The loud one who sings a lot.
A loud one, yeah.
When will we get Skrillex on Ponies at Dawn? Oh,
tomorrow.
Like, next up, man. It's happening. He just submitted. That's great.
Dude, he just texted me. He was like, "Yo, man, you got any compilation albums coming out based around My Little Pony?" I said, "Nah."
I mean, we basically do have Skrillex submit. I mean, Scratton's on our albums. He's basically Skrillex at this point.
We have weak Skrillex, who's way cooler.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, lads. I am being threatened in the DMs that we're delaying the schedule. So.
Anyway, no worries.
Yeah, let's wrap this thing up. Big thank you to everyone who has been watching the panel and contributed to the chat. It's very cool to have all of you here. Shout out to Prince for organizing, for helping us with the panel, and everyone else on staff for EuroPon as well. It's really cool of you to have us and, give us the opportunity to talk about ourselves for an hour.
Yeah. I hope you have a good rest of the con and enjoy some of the music that's later on the next couple of days. So
yeah, make sure to go check out Faulty's live show, which will be happening tomorrow.
Heck
And
yeah.
of course, all the other live shows as well, but specifically Faulty's.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Yep.